Gainsford there for you with that report. Now we're going to move on to today's focus on the programme. It is starting to get better. That's the view of just one Iranian student that France 24 has spoken to on the streets of Tehran after the easing of sanctions on the country. It's been a year since Iran, the United States and 5 other world powers, including France, reached a landmark deal designed to limit Tehran's nuclear programme, whilst at the same time easing the sanctions against Iran. Well, France 24's correspondent in Tehran, Mariam Pirzadeh, reports on the effects on Iran's economy.
Pure joy on the streets of Tehran. On the 14th of July in 2015, minutes after a nuclear deal was signed, the capital's main street was invaded by Iranians eager to celebrate 2 things: the end of the sanctions and the return of Iran on the international stage. 1 year later, those initial hopes haven't quite been realized. These students were there that night. We met them at the Palladium, one of Tehran's new malls, in a posh area of the capital. For them, all these shops are still too expensive, but they remain hopeful.
We can see that foreign brands are slowly coming back. It's going to get better. The sanctions were only lifted 6 months ago. We were under sanctions for such a long time, we won't see the results overnight. It's going to take at least 2 or 3 years. We need to be patient.
In the last 18 months, shopping centres like this one have sprouted up everywhere in Tehran. All foreign businessmen who visit the capital get their mandatory tour of the Palladium. 1 square metre of display here costs $300 a month. And for now, with the exception of a few foreign brands, most of the shops are Iranian.
Iranian people are already very familiar with luxury brands, such as Louis Vuitton, Chanel, and Burberry, for example. When they're abroad, they're very used to going shopping in these brands' shops. They also go shopping in the main clothing retail shops. So we hope that these brands will come to Iran in the next year or so. And once the contracts with these brands are finalized, they will be able to set up shop here in our Palladium Mall.
Thousands of investors and foreign companies have visited Iran in the last year and a half. Valérie noticed this show of interest, so she decided to become a consultant. She advises foreign companies on how to set up their business in Iran.
Bonjour Manouche, ça va, tu vas bien? Écoute, j'ai bien reçu le mail de Sophie. Alors justement, je crois que là maintenant, il va falloir qu'on concrétise et qu'on parle un petit peu de la stratégie qu'on peut adopter pour aller de l'avant. J'ai déjà vu 2 sociétés qui, à mon avis, dont le profil pourrait correspondre justement à la société française qui veut venir ici.
Valérie has been living here for the last 23 years. And when it comes to Iran, she knows the ropes.
Some large companies call on us even if they already know Iran. They think it's very opaque. It's not always easy to know what's going on from outside the country, but they're afraid mostly because Iran has had a very bad press, most of the time undeservedly. So they're still a bit apprehensive. They have to get to know Iran, and our role is to bridge the gap between them.
But there is one more hurdle: the sanctions. They were officially lifted 6 months ago, but unilateral US sanctions are still in effect, aimed at several banks, airlines, various companies and individuals. These sanctions forbid US citizens and companies from conducting most forms of business with Iran.
Today there is a lot of frustration. There is a lot of doubt as well. The Americans, the Europeans and the Iranians need to be more transparent so that the initial leap we took when we signed the deal and the sanctions were lifted turns into something really positive. To achieve that, all the parties need to make an effort.
Despite the international bank's reluctance to back Iran, trade with the European Union has increased by 20%. But there's still a long way to go before Iran can really reap the fruits of the deal. The US elections are on the horizon, and Iran's fate lies partly in the hands of whoever is elected in November.
A report there from our team in Tehran. Well, that's the news for us here at the moment on today's Live from Paris. Do stay with us. More news coming up very shortly.